couple of nights ago, Karen heard a program in the middle of the night about a breakthrough in Germany, and they had found that they had trained, I think, Alsatians or German Shepherd dogs to smell the crocodile virus, and they were 100% accurate. And it took about 2 minutes.
Isn't it scary what your dog knows about you that you don't know about them?
Yeah.
It's an encyclopedia for them. The world is a symphony of smells. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Chair, we are live and ready to go.
Thank you, Leslie. Good morning, everyone. This is Finance and Economic Committee meeting. It's 9 o'clock. We have an agenda before us. And looking at it, are there any additions, deletions, or rearrangements, starting with administration?
We have none, Reeve Cooper.
Councilors, starting with Eric Butters.
None.
Paul Ryan.
None.
Paul Clark.
No, none, thanks.
And Lisa. Okay. So we have an agenda before you. Do I have a mover? Don't I have it from Eric?
I'll move.
Eric has it. We don't need discussion, so I'm calling the question. All in favor, just show your hands. Physical hands will be fine. 1, 2, 3. Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan. 4. And myself, 5. We have an agenda, folks, and we're moving on. The minutes of the September 22nd meeting are before you. Are there any issues with the minutes?
I'll move the minutes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I have a mover of the minutes as presented. Any edits, additions, deletions, or clarifications? I'm not hearing any. Calling the question. All in favor of the minutes as presented? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, moving forward in the agenda then, thank you. We are now on C1. C1 has 3 items in it. It's as information. And we will open them up for discussion first. The first bit of information deals with some invoices. And are there any questions with regards to either the Hirschfield invoice or the cleaning firm? Any questions there? Shana, have you anything to say to those invoices?
No, I have nothing to add to that. Thank you.
Okay. I'm not hearing any. And then moving down to councillor expenses. This is a very unusual year for councillors. I would suggest that we have not had a year like COVID, and then a flood issue, and then a big fire issue, and then just recently a grass fire issue. It is the year of EMS. And that has reflected itself in the honoraria. In other words, you are getting your basic pay, you are very busy, but you're not attending all your meetings. And there is a discrepancy in anticipated return versus actual return. Any discussion there? I'm not looking for a solution to any of these problems. It is as information. Not hearing any. Do I have a mover for as information?
I'll move it for information, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
I have it from Paul Ryan. Calling question, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Thank you for your report, Shana. We're now on F1, which is finance. And this is the payroll checks issued. And Shana, you would need 2 motions for these or 1 motion?
Typically, we handle this just with 1 motion to accept as information.
So it would be, the motion would likely be staff recommendation 1 and 2 combined. So let's do the first report, or payroll report. And are there any questions with regards to payroll? Noting the summary comes first. And it was very hard on the screen to look at the paper at 90-degree angle to the screen. So, but the other pages read well. But, any questions on payroll? Anybody that thinks that democracy comes without any costs is sadly deceived. And it does cost money to keep the organization going, and I do appreciate the contributions made by our ratepayers. Any mover for the, we'll go to the second report then, which is the checks registered report. Slightly different report.
So
Which
I
page
have a
is that on?
question, Mr.
Oh, I don't know which page I should be on. Checks issued report, I think, starts on page 11. Check
I have a
registered.
question.
Yes?
I have a question on page 10, Mr. Chair.
Okay, go to page 10 and ask your question.
Yeah, so that's the DevCon holdback for landscaping for the Exshot Creek mitigation. So we released the holdback. I think you may recall a number of times I've asked the question about the hydro seeding that did not take along the side of Windridge Road and what was going to be done about that. And I was told that there was a warranty, that there was a holdback. Now the holdback has been released. They did not come back and reseed the area that didn't take. So how are we proposing to deal with that if we don't have a holdback?
Rob, we can't hear you.
To the chair, to Councilor Ryan, it's my understanding that they will be coming back in the spring to finish off the hydro seeding that would not get completed, that has not been taken.
So there is something in writing then?
We'll have to talk with Doug, but that was my understanding.
Okay, can you talk with Doug then and let me know?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Any
Good, Mr.
other
Chair,
questions?
for me anyway.
Okay, any other questions? Then I'll entertain a motion for staff recommendation as presented in 1 and 2. Do I have it? I have it from Lisa.
No, I have a question.
You have a question?
I didn't.
To make
I was
a
raising
motion, I
my
don't
hand. I
charge
didn't
to ask
know
the question. It's expensive. Go ahead.
Just a question about the on the same page that Paul was just talking about on page 10, the bluegrass check for $226,000. Landscaping for Exshot Creek mitigation, irrigation for landscaping for Exshot Creek mitigation. Was this part of the original creek mitigation plan, or is this above and beyond?
Yes, it is. No, it is.
Okay,
That's all.
thank you.
Okay. Good questions. We have a motion on the floor, do we, or do we not, Lisa?
I'll make the motion then.
Okay. Motion is recognized. Discussion is underway. I'm not hearing any. Going to call the question. All in favor, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you. Really clear reports, Shana.
Thank you.
Yeah. I do believe that understanding the business of the organization improves the decisions that we make. So it's well spent energy. F2 now. We're on reserve updates. From time to time we get these because they actually represent a moving target. Shana, did you want to bring anything out on your chart?
Just let me turn the view so I can see my chart. I don't believe there's anything particular that I want to draw attention to at this point. I am prepared to answer questions if there are any.
The first question I have, Shana, is on the right-hand column. It says the 2020 budgeted closing balance. This is the anticipated, of course, because it's not actual.
Correct.
Correct. So this is this is where we were on the left-hand side and where we expect to be in December 31st this year.
Anticipating. There will be some projects from 2019 that I did not carry forwards, that were not completed, that I did not include in the budgeted projects. I went based on the 2020 budget only for this, so There might be some slight changes. The gravel pit, there's still some work being done on that with Kendra's group. And so there will be some other expenses that are not included in that list of budgeted projects that will come forward yet. Anything that's been approved by council for the community enhancement ward funds is also not incorporated there. I go through those and make sure I have the proper approvals with reference to the correct motions for the auditors at year end. So a more accurate depiction of this will come forward early in the new year.
Okay. So I was going to draw council's attention to the aggregate levy reserve. And the aggregate levy reserve is inputted by costs from industry and gravel extraction, etc. It comes in at what, $30,000 to $40,000 a year?
Been averaging about 40 to 45 right now.
40 to 45. So we have several years of money in reserves there. And I also note that the community enhancement funds are increasing at a greater rate lately than when they were first organized or achieved, so that the amounts coming in are about, what, double previous values, or?
Close to double what they were 3 years ago.
And I'll leave the rest to seeing where they're at, so that each ward has slightly different funding, and we'll see how that goes. Any other observations or questions? Not hearing. Oh, Lisa. Okay.
Tina, is it possible to get in our next finance package to include this chart, but also the maximum and minimum allowed in each reserve as per policy? Because I think I asked this question at the last finance meeting when we were looking at what we were going to contribute to the reserve accounts. So I was curious to know where the accounts are at with regards to their maximum and minimum.
You should have that available to you in your copy of the policy. If it's the wish of council to bring it forward in the next package, I can. Or of the committee, sorry.
Okay, well, I can dig that out. I just thought it would be a more concise document if we were able to see what we're budgeted, what our balance is, and what our max and min are.
You're concerned about funds being undersubscribed and oversubscribed, are you?
Well, yeah, if we're looking at making contributions to certain funds in our budget, it would be nice to know if the funds that administration's asking us to consider putting that money towards, where we fall in that max and where it falls in the spectrum of what we're looking to achieve. I just think it'd be easier for council to see where we're at. Like, if, for example, the elections reserve, I'm just going to pick on that one because that one I know doesn't need to get much bigger or smaller. But if we're always hoping to have $10,000 in that reserve and now we're sitting at $15,000, then we don't need to add money to that reserve.
Okay. Yeah,
So
I got you.
that's where I'm coming from. That was, I guess, part of the request I made last month to know where we're at with those reserve amounts that are part of our policy.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm just curious, is this a complete list of all of our reserves?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just one question for clarification, Mr. Chairman. The proceeds from lot sales, $5 million, roughly.
5 million?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, you said lot sales, not rock sales.
Lot sales, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Paul Ryan.
That,
Yeah, Mr. Chair, so
No.
on the reserve accounts, the contributions
I'm
to
coming back
reserves
to you,
are
Paul.
made. The contributions on reserves are made once our audited financial statements are complete. And then
Yes.
we know what the surplus of revenue over expenses is. And at that time, the policy comes out with the values in the different reserve accounts as well as the policy around inflows and outflows. So we're not making any contributions to reserves until our audit financial statements are finished.
Good
We
point.
make our budgeted contributions to reserves. However, if after all of the expenditures come out as well as the anticipated contributions, if they are at their maximum at that point, then it gets reallocated as per those changes to the policy that we made last year. So we never, after we've completed the actual spending from the reserves, we never exceed our budgeted or our policy maximums. For the operating reserves, so those would be your tax rate stabilization, your operating reserve, and your elections reserve. Any contributions that are made to those are for an anticipated operating. So say the elections reserve, rather than just having a $16,000 to $20,000 expenditure solely in the election year, we've opted to contribute $4,000 a year into that reserve. So when we get to that fourth year and it's time to start spending on an election, then we have that 16,000 set aside, and it's not a hit on the a larger hit on the budget for that cycle. And then all the rest of them, it is monitored and maintained through the audit process.
Does that answer the question? Whose question was it?
Let me ask maybe another question for clarification. All of these reserves are there on which you withdraw money for expenditures during the year, and so the proceeds from lot sales seems kind of like an outlier. In other words, if a third party would read this, they would say, well, proceeds, that's money coming in, as opposed to vehicle reserve, where it's a reserve for all your major vehicles and your fire trucks and garbage trucks and so on. But I'm quite confused on what the proceeds from the land sales would be used for.
Okay, I think that goes to administration.
Just give me one moment. So actually, I don't have much in the policy on that other than their restricted surplus.
Okay.
So they would be council discretionary funds. Rob, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, we don't show up in any expenditures in 2021 for taking any money out of those reserves.
No, I
And
believe
so that
we have been holding those in anticipation of the future operations shop.
Rob, we can't hear you.
Yeah, what Shannon says is correct. I mean, it says here in the policy, the proceeds from lot sales reserve account was established for the proceeds from the sale of empty lots for which the proceeds have not been specifically earmarked. These reserves, as Shane has noted, are considered restricted. And it would be our intent to
You see
use
that
some of
in-
these monies. Sorry, Paul.
Can you say that in English? Sorry, I missed it.
The reserves
They're
are
restricted
accounted
to what?
I couldn't hear you again, Rob, so you have to say it again.
The reserves are accounted for and they're in the policy. They are restricted.
So what-
So a little bit confused, restricted for what?
Well, our administration's intent would be to use them for either acquiring land or for hopefully developing a new operation shop, which obviously is later in the agenda.
Ah, okay, you just answered the question. Oh, I just see a moose going across my pasture.
Is your deep freeze full?
Don't forget to lead it.
Cow moose.
Eat beef, moose is not good anyway.
Okay, the answer, I
Thank
think,
you.
was,
You answered the question.
yeah, it's restricted. The understanding in administration has been for the purposes of building public buildings in the future. All of which are quite expensive, by the way.
Yeah.
Useful and needed.
Okay, I got it.
What do we have to do with this? Receive as information?
Yes, please.
Okay, so motion to receive as information. Have it from Paul
Make that
Clark.
motion.
Any more discussions or questions? Calling the question for the motion. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Moving on. Thank you for that. It's a moving target, Shana, and as you keep us updated on it, I think it really does balance our thinking.
Sorry,
Thank you.
Reed Cooper, I don't know if administration needs more direction from council or from our committee here, finance committee, to include the minimum and maximum as part of that chart for a future
think-
presentation.
I think it's been heard and will be acted on, Lisa.
Okay,
I don't
thank you.
think we have to put a motion. Is that correct, Rob?
Well, policy F16 pretty much spells out we can't go below the minimum, we can't go over the maximum. It's already in the it's already in policy. So, Councilor Roswell, do you want to see a actual table that has that based upon what we're going to have our closing balances for all the reserve accounts?
I would like to see a minimum and a maximum column added to this table. In the last finance meeting, let's see, there was a suggestion to add $40,000 to fire contribution to vehicle reserve. So when we start doing stuff like that, in order for me to feel confident in knowing that that $40,000 should be going into the reserve, I would like to make sure that I would like to see where we're at with our minimums. I guess it's mostly our minimums. If we're by law not allowed to go over a maximum, it's our minimums that are. I want to make sure we're not hovering around our minimums.
The chair, our finance department would keep that totally in check, but we will add 2 columns for you for the next meeting and for that meeting only.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Taking a look at, have we called the question on F3?
I don't think
No,
we
yeah,
did.
not.
Or
Oh,
no.
yeah.
No, we've completed
Sorry, no.
F2.
F2, we're complete. Thank you. And now we're moving to F3, and this is to accept as information. Will this require 1 or 2 motions? Shana?
We can do this in one motion as well. This is just unaudited information for the committee. Quick snapshot of roughly where we're at for the year. I would say that we're in good condition, all things considered.
Okay.
that being several emergencies.
Okay, so I'm going to open the floor to questions starting on page 21. And you can ask your questions all the way to the end of this report. And then I'll move on to the next counselor. So who would like to go first? Eric, have you got anything you want to bring forward?
I have a question. Please remind me, Shana, what I'm looking at page 22, sale of services, about a third of the way down, 109,000, 55,000. Please remind me what these sales of services is all about.
Sorry, let me get back to the page 22 is what you were looking at?
Yes. About a third of the way down. There's 4 items for a sale of services.
It ends with 416. 417.
So for the water, the sale of services is the sale of it's the revenue from the ratepayer for their utility service. Sale of services for the roads department could be rental of equipment. Where else might we see sale of services? Typically, it'll be in your water and wastewater. And it'll just be the collection of revenues to offset the expenses for the utility.
Thank you
Part
very
of the
much. That's
full
meets
cost
my needs.
recovery.
That's just fine. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Paul Clark, Ryan.
No, I have nothing. I was reading it. What I guess I've got here is just the general ledger, is it, Shannon?
Yes.
Because you keep seeing mileage repeating itself, honorariums
Yeah.
repeating themselves.
This is the
So
full
it's just a
listing.
GL.
Yes.
I have some
Read it like a
observations.
general ledger.
Yeah.
My apologies, Mr. Chair. It's
Yes.
Leslie.
Yep.
We've just had a Wi-Fi go down and come back on. I believe that the recording secretary may need to back up just for one moment. And I'll let Linda ask if that's what she requires.
Have you finished item number 3?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I have some observations for council. And the first one is that in the top 5 lines on page 21, you see most of our revenues. And we are very, very heavily industry resource dependent. And we have $1 million worth of residential taxation. So it does show our revenue stream rather well. I note that it also outlines that there are 6 different local improvement levies underway, totaling almost $500,000 coming in this year on a $3 million outlying requirement. So we have about $3 million in local improvement levies, about $500,000 in payments this year, and there are a total of about 6. The other one I want to bring down to is conditional grants from government. And it does demonstrate how valuable government granting is to the MD of Bighorn. Many, many things are getting done, not on the basis of municipal taxation, but on the basis of granting from provincial and federal governments to our projects and needs. Okay. Is there a motion for to receive this information? Staff rec? Okay, Lisa? Oh, Lisa's fast today. Right on it. Motion is staff recommendation. Discussion? Calling the question, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Moving to F4. F4 Went one page too far. What page should I be on? There it is. 37, yeah. So, okay. This has two motions. It is facilities needs analysis. I believe this is your report, Rob, and would we be making one or two motions?
Two separate motions, please.
Okay. Can you introduce your report, please?
I certainly can. Administration and council have been discussing the need for replacing existing municipal buildings for the past decade. In particular, it would be the operations shop and yard, and second from that would be the administration building. The current facility needs assessment was prepared by Marshall Tidamore in 2010. I see there's been a decade has passed since that time, and we need to be able to go forward and update the staff complement and space requirements required for expected growth of the municipality in the next 10 to 15 years. Using the findings of the MTA study, the MD's corporate strategic plan reflects the new operations shop and administration building. Those can be seen on attachment 1. The delays in achieving this objective have been attributed to the land exchange agreement for 2013, flood, and resulting creek mitigation projects. Facility needs assessment needs to be updated in terms of the 2010 assumptions of growth and staffing levels. In addition, the needs assessment and these properties also need to be evaluated to ascertain their development potential for future municipal buildings. The RFP will be prepared to have those questions answered by a successful proponent. We require the service of a qualified professional to review the functional needs of the staff and the right sizing of buildings for the current and future demands. So the administration is recommending that council consider the two motions presented to you today.
Okay, thank you. So, Rob, when you're thinking about public works buildings and office buildings and pricing, are you including the prices to clear the land, level the land, and put deep services, or is this just for the building themselves?
No, there's a section in the RFP that does require the assessment of the properties, and that includes servicing.
Okay, thank you. So it's an all-in figure that we're looking for and an all-in plan.
Yes.
Thank you. Questions of administration? I'll start.
Just a comment.
Oh, Paul?
Just a comment, Mr. Chair. I'm glad to see on page 47 that we're actually going to look at our existing properties as well, because we have some brownfield property already, and I'm glad to see that we are going to also look at those. That's how I'm reading this property, Rob?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Paul Clark, anything to ask?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I might have written this as facility needs and opportunity assessments. There may be the bare bones municipal buildings, or there may be future opportunities that are going to come up that we need to plan for today.
Yes.
Does that make any sense?
I think it did. When we put these proposals forward, Paul, there is the immediate needs that we can measure today. And then there are predictions for populations. And I believe in the old documents, the population predictions were quite high and perhaps not reflective of the history to this point. Rob, would you comment on that?
Yes, I think that we had over 10,000 people was predicted on a 20-year horizon. We're 10 years into the original predictions, and we're nowhere close to that. So I would suggest that maybe doubling our population would be what we'd be looking at, and right-sizing buildings to accommodate that type of growth. Not for 10,000 people.
I think, Rob, excuse me, I'm kind of showing my technology geek side of me. That's what I was thinking more of, is that maybe there's technologies that are out there that in the future, let's say that the whole area, just as an example, could be powered by a combination like you've done at the landfill, that could be powered by other than the normal natural gas systems and so on. And it would just show that that the MD is being very proactive in the trends of keeping our footprint low. I'll give you an example. Maybe geothermal would be a better heating system than natural gas. So that's where I was just coming from. I'm not suggesting that this be an exhaustive study. What I'm saying is that maybe the contractor would be able to say, well, this will fulfill your needs, but here's some opportunities in the future.
Okay. Rob, if you have any questions to ask of that?
No, it's a good point. I don't see this actually as part of this study. I would see that the results of this study being turned into an RFP for an actual build, and those types of requirements would go into that RFP.
Okay. That's
what
fine.
I heard.
They're not lost on me, Councillor Clark. I totally understand what you're talking. I think the building would be it would be a smart building, and we would be moving forward to anticipate new technologies and not be stuck with the old power sources. And if geothermal was the way, I know they've done that in Camel for the Spring Creek development. It's worked very well. Whether or not we would have the opportunity here in Eggshell or wherever the buildings might be located would have to be part of a second study.
Paul
Okay.
Clark?
Thank you.
Yeah, that's well said, Rob, and that's exactly what I heard you say, Paul Clark. Yeah, good. Section 4, is there any reason not to ask?
I think Lisa has a question.
Oh,
Lisa has
Lisa.
a question.
I thought you were making another motion, Lisa.
No. I guess my comment to this is I see that the submission deadline, project completion for this would be June 15th, 2021. I'm just feeling like when it comes to the shop, this decision to move forward and start making some progress on building a new shop has been delayed for years. To wait again now until June 15th to just even start the conversation of like what we're gonna build when we already have, I know the original Marshall Tidmore document is like slightly outdated and projecting the wrong population, but would we not be able to just have somebody review that document and consider our population hasn't grown to that amount and maybe make some adjustments from that document rather than starting this whole thing over again? It's just frustrating to me when I know there's been conversations for over 10 years about the shop going forward, and when I see a project completion date of mid-June, and that doesn't even answer, it might answer some questions on where to build and how big it needs to be, but can we not figure that out with what we already have and the experience of our directors?
Well, through the chair to Councillor Roswell, this is a corporate strategic objective by council. You've already approved it as a capital item. The capital item was for 2020. I'm fulfilling that obligation to bring that forward. We do need an operations shop, but this is the best way to move forward with it. If council wishes to change that direction, think council must give me that direction.
Well, and part of the strategic plans is obtain site and construct a new operations shop in accordance to the guidelines noted in the 2010 Marshall Tidmore Facility Needs Report. It's not asking to do another facility needs report.
Through the chair, if you overbuild for a 30,000 population or even a 10,000 population, you might best be wasting money too.
And I 100% agree. We should not be building for extra population that a projected population that we will likely never see in the MD. But what I do think we should consider is looking at that, the report that was already completed and paid for, and scaling it back based off of the parameters that were used to create that report. Like, there's a lot in that report that isn't needed. Like Paul Ryan has pointed out, like a riding arena is not needed for a population of 1,500 people in the MD. But I don't know if there's a way to use what we've already got and paid for in an effort to move this along in a quicker way, or maybe we just consider looking for an RFP just for the shop for site facility needs assessment and site analysis for a shop, and maybe that will make the project completion deadline earlier than June.
What year?
Less complicated ask.
Lisa, you've been talking about June 2021. When I'm taking a look at page 37 and middle of the page, just above background, I get end of 2022 as the construction finish.
Well, on page 48, it says project completion date it is expected that the final facility needs assessment and site analysis will be delivered to the CAO by June 15th, 2021. There's no way we will have a project complete by 2022 if our project completion of this analysis isn't being completed until June 15th, 2021.
Okay.
Like, I see with this date, I see our shop still 2.5, 3 years away.
All Ryan, I've got you, but I'm going to Rob, and you can answer Lisa's question, please.
No, I'll hold off on that. Let Councillor Ryan go first.
Okay, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So for at least the last 2 years, I've been trying to get someone to look at our existing brownfields as a potential location for a shop. The Morris Hirschfield document, as Lisa pointed out correctly, was to build a mega facility, a campus type thing that had everything, including an arena, which of course was way too big for anything that we currently have. Now we have property that may be suitable, that is brownfield, that if it is not used for municipal purposes, it becomes a liability because it is brownfield. And in terms of build time, if you'll notice when you're driving into Canmore, they're putting up a building that would probably be the size of a municipal shop, which is a steel construction building, and it's going up really, really, really fast. So it doesn't take a long time to do things like service buildings and utility buildings. But I think the Morris Hirschfield document didn't do us any favors in terms of getting it done. And I think that this is the best way to move forward. It's not the fastest way, I think, but I think it's probably a stepwise way to do it. And make sure that we look at all of our assets and not just have a report generated to justify a position.
Okay. So, having heard that, Rob, do you want to go to Paul Clark first?
No, I actually wouldn't mind responding to Councillor Oswald.
Okay.
The Marshall Tidmore report did not talk about actual locations. This report, or at the RFP we're asking for now, will evaluate locations of where we can put an operations shop or an administrative building. It doesn't talk about campus style. It tells me where can we put these buildings on MD property within the Bow Valley. That's what we're asking for. So as far as speed, This is not a point to be knee-jerk, and then it's been 10 years in the making. We need to get a shop built. I totally agree with you. I mean, you took the tour up there, Lisa, and you saw the state of that operation shop. We need a new shop. But I would prefer to go through this route as an easier way, one, to right-size the buildings we need, find the location, come back to council with the results, and then start moving into a design stage for an operation shop and yard. That's my goal, to have that done in 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I guess I had never anticipated that administration would have a desire to go back right to the start again. And I understand the need to look for the location, but in all the years we've been talking about this, I know we've been referencing the Morrison and Hirschfield study and acknowledging that it's not as accurate as we wish it would have been or could have been. But at the same time, I was never led to believe that we needed to do this. I wish we would have done this 2 years ago.
Well, food share it is in the budget that you approved in 2020, and we're trying to get it done.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to go up to Paul Clark. I think you had your hand up, Paul.
I did, thank you. I agree with both Mr. Ellis and Councillor Ryan, is that I think it's a necessity to go back and look at this, because there is a huge difference between the Marshall Tudmore study and what we're looking at today, and so I think the whole area of technology and buildings and would be so much different. I don't think I wouldn't be happy, from an engineering point of view, to kind of tweak the Marshall Tudmore study and just kind of scale it down. And I don't think we have any burning platform here. We'd love it to have a new shop, but I learned in engineering economics is that don't fall in love with a sunk cost. So just because we spent the money 10 years ago doesn't mean that we have to essentially use it now. Things have changed so much. And I agree with Councillor Ryan that these buildings can go up very quickly. Particularly these steel buildings they got now. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to Eric now. Anything to say?
Well, I certainly empathize with the concern about the delay in this thing. But I do agree that I think we need to do the kind of study that's contemplated here. I just have to wonder why it would take 7 months to do that. It seems to me that we should try and light a fire under somebody and get it done a little quicker than that. But it has to be correct. I get that. It has to be done properly. But boy, 6 or 7 months, as been suggested, they probably build the building faster than it does to take this study. So but my comment is I think we need to do the kind of study that's contemplated, but surely we could get it done in less than 7 months.
Okay. Final comments, Rob?
Yeah, through the chair, if you want it done sooner, give me a motion to amend the RFP and make it and give me a date then.
Why is it where it is now, Rob?
We have to go through the RFP process. Council would not be approving the RFP proponent until January. So you have February, March, April, May, June. You have 5 months.
5 months. I'm thinking we can, I don't see us at opposite ends. I see that there's a sense that it might take as long as the longest period, but we would like to get it done sooner. What holds it back to sooner if you can get it done, Rob? You're not just.
No. If you want, I can put wording in there to have it a month earlier if you want.
This is a recommendation. It will come to council yet.
The
Is that
approval, the RFPs will come into administration. They will be reviewed by admin, and a recommendation for proponent will go to council at the first meeting in January.
We can't approve anything at a finance and economic meeting. All I can do is
Only recommend.
only recommend. That's the point I'm making. Paul, Ryan.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, so I've had the great pleasure to have to send out a whole bunch of RFPs in the past few years with respect to the Energy from Waste project. And if you want to have quality contractors or experts, you have to give them a reasonable amount of time to review your RFP documents for them to consider them. So that you don't end up with a whole bunch of contingency money hanging out there because it wasn't properly considered. And then it has to come back to administration. And then the evaluation team goes through the different proposals to see if they check all the boxes. Is there something glaring that was missed? And do you have to go back and give everybody a shot at it again with some amendments? And then administration will then make a recommendation to council. That will be done expediently if it's done by the end of the year. So doing these things, it's important to make sure you have enough time to pick the right candidate and give enough time for the candidates so that the right one rises to the surface. So I realistically couldn't see this coming before council to approve the contractor before the end of the year. It's already November.
Okay.
I don't like things going slowly. It's just
I work on motions. Is there anyone?
good grab, Lisa. I thought I saw it someplace, but good grab.
Yeah, there is on page 47, Lisa.
Page 47.
Heading there. Give me some minutes.
Summary of deliverables.
Last sentence on page 47.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew I saw it.
Presentation to council for the facility needs assessment.
Does that cover it, Lisa?
Summary of deliverables. I think so.
It's the last bullet on page 47.
I don't know why it's not under, but I don't know what the difference is between project deliverables and summary of deliverables and why they would be different actually. But the summary is actually bigger than the project deliverables. So
You're actually bringing a very good point forward that I didn't catch, so I'm very interested in it. Rob, how would you consider the statements in the contract? Are they going to accomplish our needs or not accomplish them?
I think they will accomplish it. I don't have a problem with it. If you want, Councillor Roswell, make a motion and we'll just add in final presentation.
I'll make the motion to approve the request for proposal document, facility needs assessment and analysis of development sites for future municipal buildings, and to include a presentation to council under 4.6 of project deliverables.
Okay. Is that clear? Not hearing any. Do I have a motion for staff recommendation 1?
I'll make that motion.
I just made that motion.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I thought we just made a motion to
Okay.
page 47 or whatever we were on, the wording into the, did you make a motion before that?
I did number 1 and included to add a presentation to council as part of that
That's-
motion.
When I asked Linda if we had it, I couldn't figure out where the statements at the start of that were coming from. Now I'm on track. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So number 1, it has been achieved, actually. Number 2 now is to direct administration to undertake an RFP process. Do I have a mover for that? I have Eric. Discussion? Not hearing any. Calling the question, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you very much. Rob, have you any final comments or anything to add?
No, we're good. Thanks very much to council for approving it.
So we will see that again in November. I'm moving to F5, which is page 59. Have I skipped anything? I don't think so. We're now on a 10-year rehabilitation program for playgrounds. And I thought I saw Kendra somewhere in the log. Kendra, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
This is your report?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, would you introduce it, please?
Yes, and just I am having connectivity issues, so I apologize if I drop off, but I will rejoin. So this is just to update the committee on the draft 2021 10-year playground rehabilitation program. And then also details included with that are part of the transition of the playground maintenance that is happening. And so part of this process involved us undertaking a detailed safety review and rehabilitation plan through. So during this review, there were some deficiencies noted in our playgrounds. So details about these deficiencies and their costs are in your package. And I can answer any questions you might have.
Okay, questions of administration? I'm looking for Paul Clark.
Only, Kendra, on what standard did you use to say that these playgrounds are deficient? Is there a set of regulations regarding playgrounds?
Yeah, definitely there is. So there is a national standard for Canada. So that is the standard that we used for that. And so the consultant is aware in these standards and use these standards to determine the deficiencies.
Thank you.
Okay. Generally speaking, Kendra, we're being protective of the community and we are trying to manage our risks. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Lisa?
Thanks, Kendra. When a playground is installed, is this something that would normally happen after installation, or I'm just surprised that some of the newer playgrounds in Dead Man's Flats and Harvey Heights, for example, that have some deficiencies found. I would have expected, especially the one in Dead Man's Flats, some of the deficiencies that were found are considered high risk according to the engineer's report. Like, how has it gone? How come those weren't identified when that playground was initially installed?
Yeah, so I can't comment on what took place during the construction and development of that playground, just as it wasn't part of my, under my maintenance program at that point. Mm-hmm. So, but there should be, there are details describing how to install playgrounds and kind of what happens before they open, yes.
So maybe my question's to Rob. Then I'm not sure. Like how when a playground is installed, is it inspected immediately after? Oh, you're muted.
So as part of the standard, yes, it should.
Hey, Rob, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
Now we can hear you.
For the playgrounds, they're on municipal reserve, and they are constructed by the developer. They are warranted for 2 years, and then they are signed over by the architect or the landscape company that installs it, and that is what we receive. There's a warranty on it for 2 years until the final acceptance certificate. Some of the ones that we've seen around here recently, those are coming up on 4 or 5 years old now. The standards, CSA standards, do change over time. And if there is something that's been found, we have a duty to inspect it, as Kendra's pointed out. And if there's some deficiencies, then we have to fix it.
I
Okay,
think the
so
question, Lisa, was to why have these changes occurred with new playgrounds? What I heard was some of them are 5 years old, and some of them have been with the developer before they became the concern of the MD. Is that your answer, Rob?
Yes, it is.
I have to be very careful because we're talking about risk.
I understand that. But with regards to the Dead Man's Flats playground, the MD has had, I guess, ownership, if that's the best word to use, of that playground for quite some time, and it's concerning to me that there's hazards as part of that playground that are just now being identified, and some of them more with how, like, the design of the structure, not necessarily like a loose bolt or anything like that. It's the way the structure is. So I just don't know how we've, I guess, gone this long with such significant hazards.
Can you point me to the specific page you're looking at, Lisa? Because
Sure, on
can't
page
find it.
97, the engineer's report classifies the. Let me go back to the legend. It's hard to remember all of it because the legend is about 30 pages before the report. So severity on page 65, the risk class are A means potentially life-threatening or capable of permanent disability. Severe injury severity potential, strangulation, head trauma, spine damage, eye impacts, major impalements, major lacerations, etc. Recommended time for repair, immediate. Be immediate.
I think that would go to you, Kendra.
So 2021 budget, so I guess we'll see in budget discussions.
I think I heard, Lisa, that it will be this coming year if it's passed in the budget when we get that far. Is that right, Kendra?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like this is these fixes, all these fixes that were identified are proposed in the 2020